And we are live. Iran launches missiles on Israel. Today we're going to be reacting to that. I've got with me Hassan. I'm sure you guys know who Hassan is. We've already got six of you guys watching. Hassan, what's going on, brother? You all right? Everything good?
I same old, same old. All good.
So, Hassan is a Muslim, so I'm sure he's got interesting perspective on what's currently happening right now. I'm dying to hear that. So we're going to be talking about Iran launches missiles on Israel. First, let's react to this video quickly, and then we're going to be giving our thoughts. So if you've got um, any videos that you want to share, feel free to just share them with me. Hold on a second. I'll just play this.
Let's look now at what we've been able to confirm about the Iranian missile attacks on Israel. The full extent of damage not yet clear. Our correspondents in Iran and Israel are not being allowed access to some locations. But the BBC Verified team has been looking at what we do know about the strikes. Nawala Magafi has the details.
Social media was inundated with videos showing a barrage of missiles launched from Iran towards Israel. And our team has been working through the night to verify the locations. So let me take you through what we found. These are missiles launching from Shiraz in Iran. US intelligence had warned the attack was incoming. Iran said its targets included Israeli air bases and the Mossad headquarters. We've been able to verify strikes in the vicinity of three key locations: Nevatim Air Base, Tel Nof Air Base, and what's reported to be the Mossad headquarters. This video is from Nevatim. The lights piercing through the night sky are missiles heading towards the airbase. In just one video, we can count at least 9 missiles clearly hitting the ground. Pro-Hezbollah media say this airbase was used in the killing of Hassan Nasrallah. The Nevatim Air Base is believed to house F-35 fighters, but most were presumed to be airborne. The second location we've looked at is the Tel Nof Air Base. In this video, you can see a crater, not at the airbase itself, but at a school a few miles away. We matched the school to recent social media photos, plus the size and the shape of the surrounding area to satellite imagery. We also verified videos of missiles hitting northern Tel Aviv, a short distance from what's reported to be Israeli intelligence headquarters. This video was taken from the balcony of a tower block. Then we matched it to this video. Here you can see the crater of that attack. We've also spoken with a number of experts about Iran's strategy. US officials say Iran launched about 180 ballistic missiles, which are hard to intercept because of their high speed. Fabian Hintz from the International Institute for Strategic Studies told us that the use of ballistic missiles in the attack indicates a deliberate strategy to minimize the warning and response time available to Israeli defenses. The IDF have said that the missiles did hit some locations in Israel, but that in coordination with the US-led defense coalition, the majority were intercepted.
All right, I have a question for you, bro.
Mhm.
We begin in the Middle East, where the
Is this revenge? Is this what
Yeah.
this is? Is this revenge for what's happening for Israel's response against Hezbollah and against Hamas and the assassinations that took place? I don't know if you guys know. We've got 27 of you guys watching here, um, but there were several assassinations the last few months. Key members of Iran, Hamas, and of course we know about Hezbollah. What's his name? Nasrallah Hassan. No pun intended, Hassan. um, so all of these guys have been assassinated quite quickly in the last few months, and then of course we have I think have they started invading Lebanon, southern Lebanon via troops, on land? Have they started doing that now?
Uh, well, sending ground troops.
Yeah, sending ground troops.
I don't. Yeah, but I think it's further down. It's not. It's not. It's not inward to Lebanon, but I don't know much about that, to be honest. I haven't kept up to date.
Okay. So you think this is revenge then for Hezbollah, Hamas, and the assassinations that have happened in the last few days, then
This is
last few
exclusive.
months? So
Yeah,
Mhm.
this is exclusively to do with it. I think this is exclusively to do with Hezbollah and all the other. They've pretty much dismantled Hezbollah. No, Hassan Nasrallah was the last guy in the pyramid of the power structure of Hezbollah. So they've taken from, I think they've assassinated maybe 10, maybe more of Hezbollah's leadership, including Nasrallah himself. What else is there? They killed Hamas leader on Iranian soil. They pretty much
Yeah.
pretty much humiliated the Iranian leadership.
But
And
but
Iran,
but but is it because the thing is we didn't see Iran attacking, even though Iran supports Hezbollah and supports Hamas. Um, their support is well known for Hamas and Hezbollah. But the thing is, we didn't really see an attack or anything from Hamas until what's his name, Nasrallah Hassan was killed.
Mm.
Was it specifically because this guy Nasrallah Hassan was killed? Was it because of him? Mostly because of him, or because or it has nothing, or was it coming anyway? It's like it was bound to come, and it had not necessarily to do with Nasrallah Hassan.
from what I hear, it was gonna come anyway, but not to this extent and not so quickly. So him being assassinated does escalate things. Did escalate things to this point, yes.
So what does he mean? So what are we saying then? What does it mean for um, what does it mean for for if Iran was going to attack anyway, if
Mm.
Iran was going to attack anyway, then I mean, aren't they asking for a war? Do they think they can win this war? Because as far as I'm aware, they had to inform America that they're even going to attack them and so on. You know what I mean? They, before they actually sent the missiles. So 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 you're telling me that Iran was going to join this war regardless? Like they
No,
were bound to.
no. I mean, they would have done something without. I'm okay. So it's not a war. First of all, it's not war. Iran's not declaring war in Israel. If they are, they're very stupid, and they're not. They're. How can I say? This is theater, right? Okay, did they send really powerful missiles? Because it was about 200 missiles, and it took about 12 minutes to travel 2,000 miles. So these are like Mach 10 missiles. These are the most advanced missiles that they have, right? And I think the second most advanced missiles that are available, the most advanced belong to Russia. As we discussed in that debate between me and JM, is the S-500. These are the S-300s. The S-500 is twice as fast. They would have hit their targets if they had those available more accurately. And I don't think the Americans could have stopped it, because the Americans did intercept a fair amount of the missiles, including Iron Dome. So they did throw their best at this situation, but it's really it's just propaganda. It's just them, the Iranian leadership, justifying their position. Because if they didn't respond, then the Iranian people and their whatever supporters that they have would have been like, well, hold on, what are you doing? Why do we keep taking crap from you? Why are you even in power? They would just turn on them. So this is the Iranian leadership saving face, because they've been so humiliated by the dismantling of Hezbollah, to the point where Hezbollah is Hezbollah has been around for quite a while, and they've been quite influential in that region. So for the Israelis just to pretty much to cut the head off Hezbollah, it's quite a humiliating situation for Iran, to the point where they have to respond. But they have to respond in a way that doesn't escalate. I say Iran, I mean the Iranian leadership. They have to respond in a way that seems meaningful, but it isn't meaningful. Because as you said yourself, they said themselves on Iranian TV, we've warned the Americans that we're sending an attack. And the Americans already knew. I don't know how they know, but I don't know if
Yeah,
they're saying a group chat or something. I just don't want it. I just want to make clear, this is not heading to war. This is not World War III.
I'm glad you mentioned the war again, because Israel did proclaim war against Hamas. So they did say it's war. So I'm thinking, now they turned against Hezbollah. To me, I'm looking, and then you have Iran backing Hezbollah and Hamas. Maybe for Iran is not trying to look at it as a war, because let's not forget, both Hamas and Iran are funded by, and Hezbollah are funded by Iran. So a lot of the animosity and anger is towards Iran for even supporting these two terrorist groups. And so the way Israel is looking at it is like, well, we're funding both of them. These guys are consistently attacking us. We are sick and tired of them. You're the head of the snake, basically. If we cut you off, then that's it. So yeah, Iran might be trying to play it off like it's not war, but is that how Israel is seeing it? Because I'm thinking Israel is seeing it like this is war. And I mean, you heard what's his name, Netanyahu talking about how he's, you will pay, they will pay for this and blah 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 blah. That sounds like Israel is looking at it. Even if Iran doesn't look at it like that, Israel seems to be looking at it like it is going to be a war.
No. In the video that I've seen with Netanyahu, and I'll find it for you hopefully. We can watch it in this live. But he said the Persian people and the Israeli people have had a good relationship. He made it very. We'll play the video. In fact, I'll find it for you. But he's not looking to go to war without the US support. I mean, ideally, it would be good if from the Israeli perspective, just to get rid of the Iranian leadership and just change and have some sort of influence there. But what happened without the US's support, and they haven't done enough for them to warrant that. I mean, have they sent rockets? Yes. Did those rockets kill many civilians? Did they warn the Americans? Yes. Did that kill many civilians? No. It's not enough to escalate things to the point where Israel will be justified in invading and just going to war with, because Israel's going to respond, yes, but it's just going to be infrastructure, it's going to be power plants, because they I'll send you the clip. Is the Israeli Mossad Twitter just posted a video of power plants in Israel, power plants in Iran, suggesting that we're going to turn your lights off at some point. But that's just them.
Say that again. Who did that? Who did that?
Oh, Mossad, the Israeli.
What did they say? Yeah. What did they do?
Oh, they post. I'll send it to you. They posted a video of the Iranian power plants.
Israeli. Okay. All right.
Meaning we're gonna respond. And this is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna turn your lights off. So it's gonna be a slap in the face. It's just gonna be, well, you sent rockets our way. You didn't really do anything, but just to as a response to what you did, we're gonna turn your lights off. So most likely they'll be doing that.
I have another question for you. I agree with you and I disagree with you at the same time, but I just want to play this video first.
איראן עשתה הערב טעות גדולה, והיא תשלם על כך. המשטר באיראן לא מבין את נחישותנו להגן על עצמנו, ואת נחישותנו לגמול לאויבינו. סינואר ודף לא הבינו זאת, נסראללה ומוחסן לא הבינו זאת, וכנראה יש בטהרן אלה שלא מבינים זאת. הם יבינו. נעמוד בכלל שקבענו. מי שתוקף אותנו, אנחנו תוקפים אותו.
اگر رژیم صهیونیستی که به دیوانگی رسیده کنترل نشه توسط امریکا و اروپا و بخواد چنین جنایت‌هایی رو ادامه بده و یا علیه حاکمیت و تمامیت ارضی ما وارد عمل بشه، عملیات امشب با چند برابر بزرگی تکرار خواهد شد و تمام زیرساخت‌های اونها مورد اصابت قرار خواهد گرفت. مردم اونها مورد هدف قرار نگرفتن، در حالی که این کار کاملا امکان پذیر بود.
Ooh, ooh, that's big talk there. You read subtitles, yeah?
Yeah. We're gonna send several targets. It's gonna be several times stronger or whatever.
So if Iran is talking that talk, then
But you sent your best. They sent their best.
huh?
They sent their best.
Are
S-500.
you sure?
And all they
Because,
did is
bro,
kill a Palestinian, because one of the casualties in the missile strike was a Palestinian.
The
And then-
thing is, the thing is, they've committed. What I don't understand, Israel has committed to the destruction and annihilation of Hamas, and now it looks like Hezbollah. So to me, it's like Iran has to say something, and they are saying something. But this is what I'm trying to say. To what extent? Because this guy here is also talking as if, you know, is he Iran's general, or what is he?
He's
Where is
a
he ranked?
he's a traffic warden.
Come on, bro. Stop. But the thing is, it's like he's talking as if we're gonna, you know, attack the infrastructure. We're gonna do this. We're gonna repeat the attacks and so on and so forth. Bro, I mean, at some point, I can see war being declared. You know what I mean? Instead of this missile flirtation business that's going on right now.
Who would want what? Israel, yes, to a certain degree. Although they've got a lot on their plate at the moment. Iran definitely doesn't want war, right? Because they will pretty much lose very quickly. So the idea that why send missiles and then just stop, and then say we're going to send more missiles? Oh, it's going to be 10 times worse. Just keep on firing. Send more and more and more and more. You've got your Iranian Guard on the border of Israel, right? They're in Syria, right? So they could just walk in anytime that they want. They could walk in now. They could have walked in last week. They could have walked in last month, before Israel decided to decapitate most of the leadership in Hezbollah, which is in the north. Why wait now after they've taken so many of your chess pieces off the board? No, it's for show. It's for show. It's one thing the Iranian leadership fears the most is it's his own people, because the Iranian people could at any point just turn and say, you know, we've had enough of this. You're useless. You're just you're just there just to suppress us and take advantage of us, which is really what they are there. To be honest with you, the Iranian leadership are the occupiers of Iran. They are the ones.
But we also had the Houthis from Yemen also attacking Israel, and Israel also responded to them. And by the way, guys, we've got 33 of you guys watching. I'm going to put up the link soon enough, and if you guys want to jump in and offer your opinions on Iran launching an attack on Israel, you know, you guys can jump in and offer your opinions. Me and Hassan is just chopping it up. So I've got some questions for Hassan, because I know you, Hassan, you're well versed on what's going on out there, because you are very much into politics. I'm just getting into politics and I'm enjoying it. Well, I don't mean enjoying it in that way, because of course the loss of life is
enjoy learning.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, all this back and forth, and you know, but it's the loss of life that I regret the most. But it is what it is. It's just the world has never been at peace, unfortunately, and we've never managed to achieve peace and harmony in the world. So it's sad. It's sad. But it is what it is. But you know, we've seen the Houthis attack, and then you know, Israel has responded against the Houthis and so on and so forth. I personally, the way I reckon, the way Iran is talking, maybe Iran doesn't. They must. They've been dealing with Israel for such a long time. I think Israel is taking this seriously to the point where they want to put an end to this back and forth that's been going on for a very long time. You know, since the state of Israel was formed back in 1948, this back and forth between Israel and all the Arabic countries surrounding it. I think they want this to end. And if it takes all out warfare, all out war against all the surrounding uh, Arabic countries around them, they are willing to take it there in order to put an end to all of this. I think part of Netanyahu's speech, he was actually addressing the people, not even the leadership of Iran, and it's almost it's like it was like a psychological tactic, trying to get the people to turn against the leadership of Iran, saying basically these guys are just subjugating you to suffer, you know what I mean, to dying and you know what I mean, and suffering and so on, instead of actually using the money that they have, you know, to invest in education, invest in the country, invest in infrastructure, and so on and so forth. What do you reckon about that?
I want to play the. Let me try to find the video of him speaking to the Iranian people, because I think it
Yeah,
was.
just send it.
It was a few days now. I just need to find it. But I've sent a WhatsApp to you a video of a link
I
for a
mean,
video.
just share it. You can't?
Oh, because I'm on my
Oh,
phone. I'm on my phone.
okay,
I WhatsApped you a video of all the bombs all the missiles. So if you just check
yeah,
that out.
yeah. I'm definitely gonna do that. I think Israel is taking this very serious, bro. And I don't think
It's not easy.
I don't think they're joking around. I think they want to put an end to all of this back and forth because it's been going on for way too long. And I mean,
Iran?
eventually, it has to stop. Huh?
Israel, you mean?
Israel is taking this seriously. Israel wants to. They want a war.
They will lose.
Lose. Ooh, that's interesting. We need to explore that. What do you mean they will lose? You think they will lose?
Okay, so if they have no US support, they would lose very quickly.
Hmm. But that's the thing, they do.
But it's not unconditional. It's a case of, I mean, it is unconditional, but not in a. There needs to be a look. If how can let me put it to this? If they could just go to war with Iran, they would
You
have
want me
done
to
it.
share it out? Sorry, bro.
Okay,
This is
oh yeah. Make it big and play the noise. Play the volume.
Why, yo!
Yeah, this is them raining bombs on a. These are
Israel.
S400s, I think, or S300s. Yeah. These are going 10 times the speed of sound.
ده المطار دخل مطارنا ده مطارنا دخل يا ولاد ده مطار
Some of them going up.
ده
See the ones going up.
Yeah.
Those are US missiles.
ده المطار ده ينعم تحرك 200 المطار.
Let me just
Those
put
are
the volume
American.
down.
Yeah, those are American
So-
missiles.
Is the American missiles intercepting it? Intercepting
Yeah.
the.
Yeah.
Okay, is that what they mean by the Iron Dome? Then that's what the Iron Dome is, basically.
No, the Iron Dome is automatic. It doesn't need any manual like input. It just does it. It just does it automatically. But
But is that the Americans doing it manually then?
yeah, this is US tank. This is US battleships on the coast just firing shots.
Trying to intercept the.
Yes.
Okay.
And they did a good job. So considering they got a warning, considering they already knew, which just indicates what Iran is really up to. Like, I mean, you don't tell your enemy, by the way, we're going to send rockets next week or in an hour or 2 days. You just send them.
That's
Am I wrong?
very interesting. I would say, okay, here's what I would say to that. Let me put the volume down. I'll keep the video playing in the background. I will say to that is, Yeah, you're right. You're right. If it, a real war and a war where you're really trying to, you know, uh, end your enemy or win, where you're really trying to win the war, where you try to, eliminate your enemy. You don't tell your enemy when you're going to do what you're going to do, when you're going to attack, when you're not going to attack. But this is modern warfare, right? But I think what you're alluding to is the relationship that Iran has with America, and they don't want to upset that because they've got bigger plans. And I can see now why you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, why you're saying that, okay, this is just for show. This is not really Iran wanting a war. And that may be true because America is the most powerful army in the world, and Israel has it at its disposal. But the thing is, it's like, yes, you might be right, but the thing is, Israel is taking it seriously. Israel is not taking this seriously. I don't think Israel wants to see a repeat of of this back and forth that's been going on with Arab countries, for the last God knows how long. I don't think they want to see a repeat of that. I think they are this after this. I don't think there's going to be a repeat. And if it takes hundreds of thousands of people to die in order for that to happen, I think that's what they are willing. That's what they're going to be willing to do.
Did Netanyahu say we are now at war with Iran?
Um, no, no, he hasn't, not yet. He just said
That,
you will pay.
yeah,
Almost
that
like
that's
almost like talking to a child. Almost like you will pay. It's like like so someone who's not that strong. Like, I know you're gonna pay for what you've done. Like, that's crazy.
yeah. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, they are like a child. Because I mean, ultimately, what are they doing? It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help their cause. It doesn't help. It doesn't help the situation for the Palestinian people. That organization, Hezbollah, did nothing but just cause damage and cause uh, they're a terrorist organization. So that's killing Muslims along with non-Muslims, causing instability in the region. So it's really, a lot of it is really the Iranian leadership justifying its position. It's like the Saudis or the Korean leadership, North Korea, to a certain degree, I guess Putin to a certain degree, because he has to justify his position as well. A lot of these movements are done to look good, because the Iranian military Twitter is really just I'll send you the link, and you look at their Twitter. It's heavy propaganda. It's a case of, we're here for the Palestinian people. We love you. When have we not? Blah 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 blah. And you think, if you really wanted to help the Palestinian people, you just go to war, right? You just go all in, and you would take whatever action there would need to be done to win victory. But you're really just playing a game that puts you in a position that you want to be in, being seen as a savior, being seen as the only champion in the region, the only ones fighting for the Palestinian people, which you're not. We're just fighting for yourselves.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead,
yeah,
bro. Yeah, go ahead. You see just some videos and all of that. I'm just
yeah.
hold on a second.
So yeah, it's really just a propaganda game. Nothing of interest. Nothing important. Of the regime and what else they're saying. But their Twitter is full of propaganda. As you can see on the screen here, you can see the missile lights in the sky, all going towards military bases, non-civilian bases. Majority is non-civilian, as said by the BBC. You'd think targeting civilian bases would really spark a reaction. If you want a reaction from them, kill civilians. That's what Hamas did, and they got the reaction they wanted. And now Iran clearly playing a game here that isn't going to lead to war, because with the US support, they wouldn't win. They know they wouldn't win. Israel wouldn't start attacking without the US support.
But don't you think? Maybe I'm off the mark here, but do you think that Israel is powerful enough by now with the level of support that they have received from the West? I'm talking about since the state of Israel was formed. They've been receiving enough weaponry now to self-govern themselves, right? I know they always getting that funding from America every single year. I don't know how many billions America sends over to
They sent 8 so far.
How much?
8, I think, in the last year.
Wow. And God knows, all the other support that America also gives them, militarily speaking. But right by now they should be able to self-govern themselves, right?
They can govern themselves, yeah, of course, but they can't go to war.
They can't go to. They've got atomic bombs, right?
Yes, they do.
And that's something that none of the Arabic countries have around them. Iran is trying it, right?
Iran was, yeah, apparently.
Was okay. So you said you had some videos, bro?
So I just sent you a link for the Iranian military Twitter account. That they've got going on there. But Israel on its own couldn't take on Iran now. I don't think they could.
Israel on its own. You don't think Israel on its own could take Iran? I think they could.
I think they would lose very quickly. Because then Syria would get involved, Lebanon would get involved. I mean, Jordan could help them, and they most likely would. But that's about it. They're on their own.
You're not talking about Iran versus Israel. You're talking about everyone ganging up against Israel.
Even without the assistance, I still think Israel on its own with Iran against its own, Iran would win.
I doubt it. I think Israel is so advanced by now. They have enough to be able to.
They couldn't even stop these missiles without US support.
I mean, we don't know how many the Iron Dome was able to stop, and how many the USA. We don't know the numbers, but I'm sure the Iron Dome was able to stop a significant amount.
Not S-300s.
Huh?
Not S-300s.
No, look, of course, we don't know. No one can. We don't work for Mossad. So we don't work for American.
They tell you directly. It's not a secret because the US pays for it, right? That's one. So they have to declare to Congress what it's for. That's one. 2, it's not meant for these long-range missiles. It's meant for Hamas and Hezbollah, and the short-range missiles, not for S-500s. Sorry, S-300s.
Yeah. No, I'm just coming from a logical perspective. that. But when I look at the relationship between America and Israel, that's been going on for so long, and military support. And military support doesn't just mean, in my opinion, doesn't just mean what do you call it? It doesn't just mean giving a certain group weapons or a certain country weapons. Um, it's I mean it's support in every level. You know what I mean? They support them literally on every single level. You know how to train their troops, intelligence, and so on and so forth. Um, but I mean that if you look at that relationship they had with America and the West for so long, I mean, and if they still can't govern themselves or can't like govern themselves militarily speaking, and they are not able to be self-sufficient or able to defend themselves without America's support, I think it just logically doesn't follow.
What doesn't
In my
follow?
that they've had such a long relationship with America, and they
Yeah.
still can't fight without the aid of America, or they would have lost. I don't see that as logically
Why?
related in the sense
Why don't you see the logic in that?
because America is the most powerful military in the world.
Yes.
America has literally given everything to every support militarily speaking to Israel. So if Israel still can't defend itself without America, it just makes no sense to me.
If Israel, okay, so you're saying they give them, okay, so so
So you're telling me you've been training me
Go.
for years. You're telling me you've been training me for years. You've
Yeah.
given me all the support. You've given me all of that, and I still cannot defend myself.
yeah, well you yeah, of course you can.
So, bro, you wanted me to show this, right?
This
What
is
is this?
Iranian Twitter. This is Iranian military Twitter account.
Iranian military Twitter account. Look at the lie. Yeah, that's a sick picture. I'm not gonna lie. That's a sick
Are you
picture.
on the? Are you on their account or because there's some?
Can you see it? Can you see it? I'm sharing it. I'm sharing it.
If you click on their account, I don't think you click on the account.
Oh, okay. Hold on. That's the account, right?
That's it.
Jeez. My Lord, let my entry be good and my exit be good, and grant me from you a helping authority. And that's the quote in the Quran, 1780, Surah 17, Ayah 80.
This is the rockets being launched from Iran.
We stand by them, the Iranians, the daylight brothers, and support them with all our capabilities against Saddam's invasion. The day will come when they will be the only ones standing by us, and our friends will leave us alone.
Yeah, so heavy propaganda. Heavy.
Yeah, heavy indeed. I mean, that's to be expected, right?
Fair use, because I don't know if you could show this
Fair
to
use.
content.
Yeah. Oh, fair use, fair use. Ooh, okay. That's oh, did they just saw Israeli soldier killed? Is that what they
Yeah.
showed? Come
Yeah.
on, man. This shouldn't be showing that, man. Come on. They shouldn't be doing that. Okay, so that's their Twitter account. What's the name of this guy here?
No, chief of staff, Major General Mohammed Bagheri.
Bagheri, Chief of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, Major General Mohammed Bagheri warns the Israel regime and its supporters that if they continue their criminal actions, Iran's next response will be even more devastating. I wonder what he means by that.
I think it means nothing. I think it's again, it's all for show, trying to act like the tough guys in the situation.
So I mean, Iran should just stop now. Then.
I think it's too late. I mean, they will pay for what they've done, as Netanyahu has said. And from what I can tell on the Mossad, you can Google the Mossad Twitter account.
Yeah.
They've made it pretty clear that they're gonna hit the infrastructure of Iran probably sometime next week, maybe. And when they do, it was gonna hurt the pockets of Iran, and they're gonna do nothing, because if they take your power plants out or your power stations and cause damage to your infrastructure, and your civilians are without power or electricity or whatever for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, they're gonna want answers. And then you're going to have to escalate the situation. You're going to have to hit Israeli power plants, Israeli buildings, and you can't give them a warning, because if you don't cause the damage, you're just wasting missiles at that point. And then if you do that, then Israel will have to respond with something a lot more severe, which would mean going for your leadership or some of your, just causing serious damage. And then it's going to be back and forth to the point where it's basically just war. Now, does Iran want war? No, because they will lose, because Israel would have a justification for invasion. And if they do, before they even do that, they will just ramp up things in Gaza, because you want to wrap up that situation pretty quickly before you go to war with Iran. So they ramp up things in Gaza, probably serious carpet bombing or something crazy like that, just to wrap that situation up. A bit more carpet bombing in Hezbollah, a lot more carpet bombing in Syria, right? Because Syria is going to be in the way, and they're going to do things that you don't want. So there's a lot of more death and destruction in that part of the world that you instigated, right? And then the US will come in. And if the US comes in, it's a wrap for Iran. It's a wrap.
Which US will definitely come in. What's the relationship? What's the problems? 'Cause then I'm going to get into. I mean, we can go back and forth as to what Iran will do, and what we can predict what Iran will do, what Israel will do. But then I want to talk about the causes of all of this, and because I mean this has to come to an end. What's the relationship between Syria and Lebanon, and Hezbollah? Because I know there's a friction there. There's issues there. And Israel, Syria and Lebanon, and things. What's the issue there?
Okay, so you've got Qatar, right? Qatar, the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, right? Bahrain as well. Like, Saudi Arabia is the main player in that region, meaning these guys, they can be independent. Of course, they're independent from Saudi Arabia, but their military is crossing the boundaries of any of those states is pretty much crossing the boundary of Saudi. So if Iran went into Bahrain, it might as well be in Saudi. If it went into Qatar, it might as well be in Saudi. If it went into the United Arab Emirates, it might as well be in Saudi. If it went into Oman, it might as well be in Saudi. If it goes into Yemen, it might as well be in Saudi, as they did in a few years ago, right? Iran just gave a lot of funding to stifle up situations for the Houthis, because the Houthis are Shia, mainly Shia, and the Saudis, the Saudis didn't take that very well, and they started bombing Yemen for months and causing obviously a lot of deaths, a humanitarian crisis far greater than what's going on in Palestine now. And so it's the same situation with Iran. Syria is basically a client state of Iran. There is no Syria without Iran, without the Iranian military, without the Iranian influence. There is no current Lebanon to a certain degree without the Iranians. They have great influence in Lebanon. So that's the relationship. That's why Israel just started taking out Hezbollah. That's why they have real issues with Assad. That's why they kind of funded ISIS and Hezbollah, and funded ISIS and al-Nusra, and even some of the people fighting against Assad at the time. Israel is pretty much surrounded by Iran. Iran is the number one threat to Israel in that region in comparison to anybody else. You talk about Arab countries, the Persians or the Iranians, they're the real threat because Arabs are starting to turn. You have obviously missiles being sent from Iran. Was it yesterday now? And Jordan intercepted quite a few of them as they were flying over. They didn't have the chance last time because the Iranians did fly I think it was a few months ago now. They did send missiles and they flew them over Jordanian airspace and Saudi airspace. Saudis shot a few down. The Jordanians didn't because they weren't prepared for it. So Iran is their number one enemy at the moment. They're the number one problem. They're pretty much the only problem. They're pretty much the whole reason this whole situation has escalated the way it is now. You know, the Abraham Accords, which is Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries recognizing Israel, having some sort of stability with them and trying to go down the path of negotiations, that's scrapped now or pushed back to the back burner because of Iran and its influence in that region.
Is that the reason why? I mean, what's the reason why Saudi Arabia, for example, is not getting involved or is not coming, to help Iran or, and Iran?
For that part of the world, Iran's worse than Israel.
Iran's worse than Israel.
Yeah.
What, to the Muslims?
Well, to the Sunni Muslim, not the Muslim people, but to the Muslim countries, yes. They would have. Iran is just Israel from a parallel universe. In a parallel universe, Iran would be the one that the Muslims would be fighting, or the Muslim countries would be fighting far more than Israel, and having a problem with that. It's not that they're Shia. It's, again, there's Shias in Iraq, there's Shias in Bahrain, Shias in Saudi. So it's not a religious thing. It's just the leadership in Iran really has no interest in having things, not getting involved in things that don't concern them. They are imperial, I think is the word, or they have
imperialistic.
Yeah, they have an imperialistic mindset. That's why they're in Syria. That's why they're in Lebanon. That's why they're sending rockets after Hezbollah was They could have just said, fair enough, Hezbollah has been killed. It is what it is. We just move on. We just eat our shawarmas and our goat cheese or whatever it is they eat over there. And they could have just kept it moving. But they didn't. They said, okay, we're going to send rockets that, 10 times the speed of sound, and we're going to escalate the situation because we have been offended. You've embarrassed us. You've killed people on our soil. You've killed our leaders. You've killed our generals. You've killed our proxies. So now we're just going to give a serious response, and we're going to threaten you. This is unnecessary. This is not a way of peace. This is a way of imperialism. They could just let it go, but they don't, because they are.
But isn't the same argument being leveraged against Israel, saying that Israel is just wants to occupy and
Palestine? Yeah.
So aren't they? Isn't this Iran? I mean, from what I've heard from Muslims, speaking about this, they basically saying that, this is just this is just a reaction. Hezbollah, Hamas is just a reaction to Israel's occupation aspirations.
Okay, two things. One, I would say they're not. I wouldn't refer to them as Muslims. I would refer to them as people with opinions who happen to be Muslims, because we're diverse and we have a variety of opinions, and you can see that from Saudi and Jordan, right? Not everybody's against Israel to that extent. That's one.
Yeah.
I would buy this argument that Israel is what's the word? Imperialist, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they didn't make peace treaties with Egypt and Jordan, and trying to negotiate with Saudi and other foreign countries, this would be true. I would accept that. But it's not. I would accept that if it wasn't true, sorry. But it is true. They have had peace. They've given back land to Egypt after they had a conflict with them. They're going towards ways of peace with Saudi Arabia and recognizing them and trying to establish some sort of diplomatic relations. They're willing to go down the path of talking. They're willing. Of course, there are crimes committed against the Palestinian people on a civil level, right? But they're nowhere near as Iran is not the how can I say, the innocent bystander they present themselves to be. If Israel was to go, Iran would be the problem, and they're probably a bigger problem than Israel itself. Because they are imperialists. Their involvement in Iraq, their involvement in Syria, their involvement in Lebanon, their involvement in Bahrain, their involvement in Saudi to an extent.
You say that, but I mean, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. I mean, they went to war against Israel. And I think it was 1967 or 68, something like that. Those were the other free Arab countries that went to war against Israel. And Saudi went to war against Israel.
Yeah.
So one can argue. Congratulations to, if they manage to resolve their differences, then great. You know what I'm saying, to the point where they're not supporting Iran in its aspirations and so on. But it looks as if they went to war with Israel, and now it's like it's almost like Iran's turn, and Iran's turn to kind of do, what they were trying to do back in 1968. You see where I'm coming from?
They all had different leadership. You have King Faisal in Saudi in the 1960s. You have I forget the Egyptian leader. It would have been Kamal Abdul Nasser, most likely. You had the Jordanian king, the father of the current current leader of Jordan. You have Assad's father, right, in Syria. I think it's pretty much the same family in Lebanon as well. Iran had different leadership back then. Iran had the Shah of Iran, who was pro-Israeli, who was pro-Western. And then then things changed. The Iranian leadership with the Ayatollahs and they came in. You have King Faisal being assassinated, murdered by a Palestinian for nothing to do with Palestine, but he was murdered by a Palestinian. You have Anwar Sadat, who took over after the war, it wasn't a conflict, but who came into power after Kamal Abdel Nasser. I think, and then he made peace treaties with Egypt, trying to, after that war was they lost the war, trying to get back to Sinai, and they got back to Sinai and made peace treaties with Israel, and he was murdered for it by the Muslim Brotherhood. You have Assad's son. Assad comes to power now, who's got issues with Israel as it stands. So many things have happened. The new king of Jordan as well. A lot has happened in that time. I wouldn't say it's their turn, as if they're all waiting to fight Israel. A lot of them have had. I mean, you literally see Jordan intercepting missiles that are headed towards Israel. Right? Of course, they're protecting their own airspace, but they could just let it go. They could just let it slide, and just that one missile could have hit a civilian area, which would have escalated the whole situation. Possibly, they could have escalated the whole situation to an actual Iran and the US supporting full-on invasion, but it didn't. It intercepted it. So the tides have changed, and times move on, and people do get tired of war and do go down paths of trying to resolve these type of issues, because the wars have come and gone. as far as the Arab world with Israel. They're now looking for a more peaceful path, which is a good thing, right? You can't be in a stalemate forever. Is Israel a U.S. military base? Yes, but to a certain degree, so is Egypt, so is Saudi Arabia, so is UAE, so is, I guess, Qatar to a certain degree. So a variety of these nations. They are either Russian influenced or they are American influence, and the American influence has won over that part of the world overwhelmingly. So that the idea that these people are the people of that generation, no, they're not. And it's pieces. Going down the path of peace is the best option, because if you go down the path of war, as far as the whole Palestine situation is concerned now, it's not benefiting anybody. It's a small group of people who are essentially alone, because Egypt's not supporting them, Turkey's not supporting them, Lebanon's not supporting them. So Iran is on its own especially without its proxies, which is Hezbollah, in this situation. They're just trying to save face. But I just want to go back to your question. You said they've had military training and support for so many decades, and now you're saying that they won't be independent. Israel isn't what you think it is. Without the U.S. How can I say? U.S. support is just another way of saying the U.S., right? Without the U.S., if Iran versus the U.S. would win 99 times out of 100, right? Unless some freak accident happens. 99 times out of 100, the U.S.
Like 100 out of 100. Yeah,
only God wins 100 out of 100. It's another
true.
thing.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. So but with all the support, their army is still maybe 500,000, maybe to 1 million at most, I think, right? At some point you run out of supplies. At some point you run out of manpower. At some point you're overwhelmed, right? Iran, far greater military personnel, quite advanced as well. Let's not underestimate. They have missiles that can't be intercepted, that can bypass the Iron Dome, and we can get the data on that. So Israel, they're good against most of their neighbors, but when you go further out to somebody like Iran, they're not that good. If you go against somebody like Turkey, they're pretty much, forget about it. Turkey's the largest drone supplier in the world, larger than the US. So Israel would lose immediately. Even Iran would lose to Turkey, right? Just because.
What's happening, brother?
We've got Elijah in the house. What's going on, my brother?
What's going on, brother? How y'all doing?
We all right. Everyone's all right. Bro, what do you make of this, man? Iran launches missiles on Israel. What do you make of this entire situation? You're from America. You're USA based, and apparently USA has this this thing of supporting Israel unconditionally, come what may. It's almost as if they have a special, unique relationship.
Yeah. I can explain that. So you probably gonna hear this explanation like probably anywhere, man. Well, not I'm gonna say anywhere, but basically the U.S. supports Israel unconditionally because they know that once Israel is reestablished as a nation, as a Jewish nation, they know. Well, I believe that they believe the U.S. or the people that run the U.S. they know secretly that Israel will not be destroyed until the end, bro. And it all has to do with biblical prophecy. So you got to understand that the people that run the United States, you know what I'm saying, like the president, the government, they are involved in spiritual things, bro. Hands down. It's the foundation of this nation, bro. Like Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, all these guys were Freemasons, and Freemasonry is a spiritual thing. It's totally spiritual. It's not, they try to, front like it's just a fraternity, but it's extremely spiritual. And what they believe, even though they believe against the God of the Bible, they believe the framework of the Bible, of the scriptures, and this is why they actually use the scriptures. But they know, and I believe that they believe that Israel, no matter what happens in the world, Israel will be there in the end. And when Israel is there in the end, if they can ride them and ride their train to the end, then they can flip on them and take over the whole entire world. See, the thing about it, the United States was created out of an ambition for the New World Order. You know what I'm saying? Like, you had the 1700s was a very serious turning point in history. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole world. And it started in Europe, started with the Jews. The Jews found a way to capitalize on the suffering that they went through from the Europeans by basically creating central banks and controlling the money. Once they understood that once we control everybody's money with our system, you know what I'm saying, that's so entangled that, if they want to back out of it, the country be totally destroyed. You know what I'm saying? No economy, no matter how big your military is, no matter how big your technology is, if your economy is messed up, you're nothing. So the Masons, the Freemasons, they were the only ones that were privy to what the Jews were doing in Europe. They knew the outcome. They saw the future of it. So they try to do a rush job and create their own power, starting with the United States of America and then helping out with the French Revolution. You got to understand, these two revolutions were at the same exact time. So the whole Masonic forge to power was all about the New World Order. It was the beginning of the New World Order. The United States was created is a framework for the New World Order, because each state would basically is a foreshadow of countries around the world under one federal organization. You know what I'm saying? And they were able to push further with that establishment by creating the UN after World War II. World War II was they loved, like, you gotta understand, like, the United States, they love the idea of World War II. They love the idea of world wars because they know that the outcome of a world war is their domination over the world. And so I believe that they really align themselves close with Israel for that reason. And when the time comes, they will turn their back. You see what I'm saying? And the reason I believe that is because it all aligns up with biblical prophecy as well. I just want to explain to you as well. So Freemasonry it's a Luciferian religion, bro. And it's proven, bro. The Morals and Dogma of Freemasonry, written by Albert Pike, which is the highest degree of Freemasonry. They explain to you, they tell you straight up, bro. They worship Lucifer. He can be used as a spirit for good and for bad. And their whole religion is, they believe that Lucifer is God and that God is, pretty much the evil one. You know what I'm saying? And so, everything they believe about the spirit realm is all biblical, about demons, angels, like all of that. But they follow, the angels and the demonic side, the dark side of it. You know what I'm saying? But in their mind, they use that to bring about the good. That's the excuse. But in actuality, they're just straight evil. So now they're lining themselves up with Israel until the end, but at the same time, the agenda is the New World Order. So now you have them lining up with Israel, as we all know, we can see, and at the same time, they're trying to create a world war. So right now, we're going through political upheaval here because the Jewish powers that have established themselves in this nation from the early 1900s, they have put Trump there to delay the Masonic plan to create a war. If Hillary would have won, right? When Trump won, if Hillary would have won, bro, we would have went to war, and the war would probably be over, and the New World Order will probably already be here. But the Jews didn't want that because they know the war would take the economy out of their hands, and once they lose the economy, they lose everything. And the Masonic powers have everything. The Masonic powers, I believe personally, are the Antichrist. There's no other movement, there's no other organization in the world that's more aligned up with what the Bible says about the Antichrist. You know what I'm saying? All the descriptions of the Antichrist from the Old to the New Testament is in Freemasonry, bro, in every shape and fashion.
Isn't that implicating, because me and Hassan will go back and forth on this as to why America has this loyalty towards Israel. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't, but we just, we like to explore what the reasons are for that, and we look at history. But
Yeah,
with everything that you said, let me just play devil's advocate here. With everything that you said, wouldn't that go back to the conspiracy of the Jew? And that I don't like to touch the records on YouTube, but wouldn't that go back to the conspiracy of, or the Jews are behind everything? They are,
no,
they are the
I
ones
don't.
responsible for
So
everything and
okay,
all of that type of stuff. You see
so
where I'm
when it
coming from?
comes, all right, so when it comes to the Jews, right? The Jews, okay, I'm gonna kind of explain it biblically, like who they are and where they're at now as a people, right? So obviously in the Bible, God brought them into the land, into the promised land, and he brought them into the promised land under conditions that, listen, you obey my commands, you'll be a blessing to the nations, da 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 da. But if you disobey my commands, I'll allow outside nations to come in and take you over. I'll scatter you amongst the nations. You'll be ridiculed, chastised. But in that state, if you repent and turn back to me, I'll bring you back into the land. I'll restore your fortunes. I'll restore the land. So as you read the biblical narrative past that time of, when Moses brought them into the land and God made that decree, you can see that actually happen. The Israelites started to turn away from God. They started worshiping other gods. And then what did God do? He allowed the Assyrians to come in and shake them up, take them out of, half of them out of the land. Then they repented, they turned it back to God, and then God restored them. And then again, they kept turning away
Yeah,
from God.
it
So
happened
he
in
allowed the
Israel
Babylonians to
before.
come in. Hold on, let me finish. So he allowed the Babylonians to take over. And when the Babylonians took over, they repented again through, prophets like Daniel, et cetera, et cetera. So they ended up coming back into the land. Again, it happened again with the Persians. I'm sorry, no, that was they were still in captivity from Babylon to Persia. Then they came back from the Persians through repentance. They came back into the land. It was always a condition that they would come back to Israel based on their repentance. But when they got scattered in 60 AD by the Romans, when they destroyed Israel, they destroyed Jerusalem, they killed every Jew they could, and the young ones that was some, they tried to sell them into slavery. They totally destroyed the land and renamed it Palestine after their enemies, the Philistines. So from that time all the way to 1948, the Jews have been scattered amongst the nations, just like God said in the beginning, if you disobey my commands and you practice all this wickedness, this is what I'm going to do. By the time 60 AD came, they had adopted so much witchcraft and so much sorcery and all these different types of religions apart from what God decreed to them that, they didn't want to let it go. So God did what he had to do. But at the same time, while he did that, even before he scattered them from the land in 60 AD, in Ezekiel, which was written before that time, there's a prophecy that they would be scattered amongst the nations, but in the last days, they would come back into the land from the four corners of the earth. The Jews, they would come back from the four corners of the earth and they will be reestablished in the land. Now, as far as their personal efforts to make this happen, okay, cool. You can look at it like that. But at the end of the day, God decreed it to happen. And I believe that's what happened. And so they come back into the land, not because of repentance. This final return to Israel is very representative of what God is doing in the last days up to the end. So them coming back into the land is the greatest sign that we're in the last of the last days. And there are very specific biblical prophecies from the time of them coming back into the land to the very end, like the war of Armageddon and the return of the Messiah. And so basically the Jews will come back into the land according to all of the prophecies throughout the Bible, not based on their repentance, but God is doing this for them. And God is going to turn their hearts back to them. So they're coming back into the land still a wicked people. And this, everybody can testify to that. Everybody's like, oh, look, the Jews are doing this, the Jews are doing that, right? Like they're not known to be the holy, righteous people, right? But this is what the prophecy says. They're coming back into the land in that state, but God is supernaturally protecting them regardless of their wickedness. And his supernatural protection is going to turn their hearts back to him. They're going to see God doing this for them, and they're going to turn back to God and become a holy nation in the end, right when the Antichrist takes over the entire world. And at that point, it's also prophesied that so as far as the Antichrist, I believe the power behind it, is Freemasonry. And not just necessarily Freemasonry, but that whole structure, that fraternal structure. You know what I'm saying? Because it's all types of different branches, in that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you see what I'm saying? But regardless, it's all Antichrist. And so they're lining themselves up with Israel because they know the prophecies about Israel that have been coming true ever since 1948. They have not lost a war, bro. Like the 1948, they got attacked by how many nations? 5 nations that surrounded them, bro. They were outnumbered. They didn't have the help of the U.S. They were a fresh nation. The U.S. was just establishing their power after World War II. The U.S. didn't really have time. They were like, look, we just came from over there. You know what I'm saying? So it was really England that had their back, but England didn't even have their back at the time because all their men got killed in war. They was, you know what I'm saying? They was trying to prepare for that. They just blessed them in helping them create the nation. But at the end of the day, the U.S. eventually aligned themselves up with them with the creation of the UN. And you know, as the years went on, 1948, that war, bro, they won that war supernaturally, bro. There's too many stories, supernatural stories of things happening, how they won that war. The Yom Kippur War in 1972, I believe. They were, again, outnumbered, they were, you know, ambushed. They had the help of the U.S. that time. You know what I'm saying? But most wars and attacks that have come on Israel, they have not lost. And basically, the Bible prophesied that once Israel is reestablished, they will become a stumbling stone to the nations that come against it. Like nobody will be able to take over Israel until the Messiah comes. Like once Israel is reestablished, according to the Bible, it's established forever. You see what I'm saying? Now, in from the time it's established until the end, there's going to be a change in the Jews according to events that will happen. And when the main event that's going to happen, that's going to eventually lead to the turning of the hearts of the Jews in Israel, will be the Gog and Magog war. This is a prophecy in Ezekiel about surrounding nations attacking Israel, and they're very specified in name. It's Ezekiel 38. It mentions Iran. It mentions first. You got to understand, this was written almost 3,000 years ago. So the names of the nations are ancient names. Persia is Iran. You see what I'm saying? It mentions Persia attacking Israel in the last days. Once they've come back into the land and have been reestablished, it says Persia along with Put and Cush and and these ancient names. When you look at the names of these nations today, Persia is Iran. Put is Libya in North Africa, which is all Muslim. Cush is, you know, like Somalia, Sudan is mostly Muslim. You know what I'm saying? It's not all Muslim because Ethiopia is mostly a Christian and Jewish nation. But also Cush extends over into Oman. And that's a Muslim nation as well. So it doesn't mention Islam, but all the nations that it mentions to come against Israel in the last days and to swarm on it like a cloud, these nations are all Islamic nations today. And you can see the narrative being played out. Palestine, or the Hamas, really is the heart behind that is going to draw these nations together to attack Israel. We are seeing this being played out. And like, again, this prophecy mentioned Iran attacking first, or Persia leading the charge. Who is leading the charge against Israel? It's Iran. Iran just hit them with all these missiles, bro. And not only that, but Iran has the support of the Muslim world, bro. It just is hands down. You know, I know you mentioned, yeah, you know, different Muslims have different opinions, but yeah, you're right about that. But there's one Quran, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Hassan, what would you make of? Of course, I would have to check the prophecies, but I trust my brother Elijah on his view of the prophecy. But to me, Jesus Christ is the cornerstone, and when the first Christians were Jews, and when half of the Jews rejected Christ, they kind of they went astray. And in Judges, what we see is repentance. What we see is the Jews going astray, repenting, and God coming to save them from slavery and so on, from bondage. And we see that repeatedly. But what we get in the book of Judges is we see consistently the Jews repenting and turning away from doing wrong. That's what we see.
Yeah, but they are hard. What you also see with that though is a continual hardening of their hearts, bro. Like if you read throughout the whole Old Testament, they continually harden their heart against God, like continually, bro, generation after generation.
But what I see from the Jews, what I saw from the Jews when Jesus died and resurrected is they rejected Christ. Not all of them, of course, because the first Christians were Jews. Half of the Jews rejected and thingy. Now you're saying that according to the prophecy, God has a plan to kind of bring them back and so on and so forth, which
Yeah,
I definitely need to check out because the thing is, even bringing them back, yeah, you have to bring back, but it has to be under the fold of Christ. Otherwise, there is no salvation for them. But Hassan, what do you make of this? What do you make of this? Is are the Jews using? Because I can see how I know where my brother Ledge is coming from, but I can see how people can look at that and try to, imply through it that somehow, the Jews are to blame. Because if we were to really unpack, what happened after the destruction of Israel, by the Romans and up until now, and how they came into power, it kind of says certain things that, you know what I mean? It puts the Jews in a bad light. Go ahead, Hassan.
no, but you gotta. I'm sorry, but just to mention real quick, you gotta take into consideration how they acquired Israel. You know what I'm saying? What is that history? Do you know the specifics? Do you know what was Palestine before the British occupation? What were the Palestinians doing then? What authority were they under? Were they under their own authority, or were they under the authority of somebody else? Were they crying out for a nation before the British occupation to create their own nation? Were they crying out to create their own nation from the beginning of the British occupation, before the Jews started flooding in during the British occupation? So you got
sorry, and I want Hassan to come in, but yeah, bro. So I know you were asking me a question. Yeah, go ahead, Elijah. What was the question or the statement that you wanted to make?
Oh, Hassan, go ahead.
Oh, you want me to? Okay.
No. Hold on, Hassan. Before you say anything, because Elijah was saying something. You wanted me to pay attention to something.
Oh, yeah. So how the Jews acquired the land is like nobody's doing the research. Everybody's emotional and just seeing what's going on now and don't really know the root of the situation and how it began, right? And so there's this big accusation that the Jews have come into the land and have bullied the Palestinian nation. It was Palestine before, and it was their nation before, and they came in and stole it from the Palestinians, and that's just not true, bro. That's not true at all.
No. What I'm talking about is how the Jews ingratiated himself with the Europeans, kings, and powers that be, or even with the Freemasons, and somehow managed to acquire all this power. A lot of people, when they talk about, when some of the conspiracies about the Jews, is that somehow, for example, the question of how they got all this power. How is it that they've got United States, the biggest, most powerful military in the world, including UK, the West? I mean, they'll support unconditionally
because they've established their influence, bro. They've helped the nations become what they are.
This is what I'm trying to say. A lot of people, because what we see is the Jews scattered everywhere, but for some reason, somehow, this group of people managed to gain the confidence, trust, and of the powers that be to such a level that they will literally support them in whatever it is that they do. How is it that these people who have been persecuted for a very, very long time, even by the Europeans, and somehow they are now in power? I mean, I'm talking about the type of power that we've never seen before. They can literally do what they want to do when they want to do it, and no one can say where. You see what I'm saying? Right. So the thing is, a lot of the conspiracy theories is, how do they manage to get to that level? And so, we've heard theories like, through finance and so on. And there's some shady, which makes the Jews look bad, which in a sense, encourages all the anti-Semitic views on Judaism, because they look
just jealousy, man. The Jews don't force. No. Listen, bro. The Jews don't force their culture on anybody, bro. You got to think about it. Like, imagine all the power that they have, bro. They got all the power in the world, and you give anybody else that power, they're gonna force their ideas and opinions and their culture on the people that they're dominating. The Jews, they get domination and they keep quiet and they go invisible, bro. And you gotta understand, this is the reason and the very motive behind them attaining the power that they have, because they have been persecuted so long and they have been the apple of the eye of the world because they're the people of the book, right? And so they've gone through so much suffering, bro, that they found a way to leverage themselves with the powers that are making them suffer, and but not as payback, right? Not as revenge, but just so they can just live comfortably, bro, because they know they're small in number, right? And they don't have a chance really in that sense. Like, they just want peace, bro. And like, honestly, if you really talk to Jews who know their history, bro, they'll all tell you the same thing. And if you really pay attention, they don't force their power or like their culture. They don't force it on nobody. They're invisible. That they love the quiet life.
Hassan, come in here. I want to hear Hassan from an Islamic perspective. Go ahead, bro.
Elijah said a lot. He said a lot.
We've got to be YouTube sensitive too. Yeah, go ahead.
I've heard a lot of so this is called eschatology, right? The end times, or the theories of end times, using scripture. So we have the Islamic eschatology. We believe in the Antichrist as well. We believe that he will be he'll present himself to the people of Israel as the Messiah. Although we, as Muslims, we believe Jesus is the Messiah. But we believe in the Antichrist. We refer to him in the Islamic tradition as the Dajjal. I'm sure you guys have heard of him before. So I've heard some people within the Muslim community say that this is the Israel that's being referred to in the hadiths in the end times, referring to the coming of a false Messiah, and this is the Israel. And there will be Gog and Magog. We believe in Gog and Magog as well. But we don't believe it's us. We just believe that
the Quran. I'm sorry, just actually real quick. You just said so in the Quran, according to the Quranic eschatology, right? The Islamic eschatology, there's no mention or acknowledgement of Israel, really beyond the time that it was, the Quran was written. And the reason is because during the time of Muhammad, Israel wasn't even a nation, bro. It was Palestine. It was a wasteland. You see what I'm saying? And so, like, as far as like the prophecies in the Bible about Israel becoming a nation again, that hadn't been touched by the Quran or the Islamic scriptures.
It would be in the hadith.
In the hadith. So in the hadith actually mention that Israel will become a nation again.
It refers to a state of Israel, and it refers to I'd have to get the details, but I know we believe in the Antichrist and being in that part of the world. So I'd have to get, because I don't want to misquote. I don't want to say from my foggy memory, but there's definitely similarities in terms of there being in Israel. Again, I'd have to. I'm going to put the details in the comment section after we finish the live, with the specific hadith, because I don't want to misrepresent the script, my scripture. But there is the Antichrist. There is the perception of there is the explicit mention of Gog and Magog. There is conflict referred to in various hadiths. There are a group of Jews being referred to, Jews in Iran or Persia, having some sort of influence in the last days over that part of the world. Various hadiths that are very similar to what you're saying, not identical, but very similar, to the point where there are people on the Muslim side that come to the same conclusions as you do. Not necessarily will not be not established, but it is of some significance, the state of Israel, to a certain degree. But again, I don't want to misrepresent, but there are similarities, yes. I generally don't go down that path because of one particular hadith that I've read. I remember reading the hadith goes, so a man came up to the Prophet Muhammad SAW, and he said, when will judgment day come? And then he pointed at a young man a young boy, and he says, when his hair is gray, your judgment day will begin. Meaning, by the time this young boy becomes old, your judgment day would have began. Meaning, when you die, your judgment day begins. So this has put me in a position where I focus more on what I can understand and what I can control, rather than what would be greater aspects of global interstellar influence. You know, this, because the day of judgment and the end times, that's specifically in God's hands. I focus on crocodile shoes more than cabals and such, because
So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, right? If the Jews have the power, and this goes for Elijah as well, if the Jews have all the power, in a sense, if seeing Israel is like seeing USA, it's like seeing UK, it's like seeing the Western powers, right? If it's the same thing, it's like if it's that, right? What will that mean for the Arabic countries surrounding Israel? What will that mean for the Arabic countries surrounding Israel? Is it going to be a situation where they're going to just have to back down and behave and be like, no, we accept defeat? Or is it going to be like, you know what, we are not going to stop until, and if they don't stop, what will that entail for them? Will that entail their destruction?
Can I go first? Because I think Elijah will have a very detailed, long answer for this. For me, I think it's a new day. I think it's a new generation. I think it's a new time. Israel was very close last year to establishing or having a road towards having an embassy in Saudi Arabia. You have Jordan intercepting missiles headed for Israel. You have Egypt being completely quiet throughout this whole thing, to the point where you would even be surprised that there was an Egypt, right? So the idea that it's Israel versus the Middle East or the Muslim world, it's just not the case now. It's really just Israel versus Hamas, Hezbollah, Syria, Lebanon, and Iran. Because most of the Arab-speaking countries in the Arab world and most of the Muslim countries are generally on good terms with Israel. I think if things blow over peacefully, and Israel has some sort of peace with the new regime that comes into power, or something is resolved with the whole Gaza situation, maybe in a couple of years from now, things will sort of blow over and it'll be far more stable. Because I just with the new leadership in the Middle East, I just don't see things going back to the way they were. I think things are moving forward in terms of establishing peace.
Elijah, same question. What do you think will be the outcome if Israel is the West, is the powers that be, is USA?
So I believe the outcome. I believe the outcome will be what the Bible says. You know what I mean? So basically, the events that we see taking place now are laid out in specific detail, event by event by event by event. It's not some general a couple of lines that, oh, it looks like that's what it's saying. No, bro, like I can literally, it breaks it down detailed. When this happened, then this will happen, and then once this happened, this will happen, and then once this happened, this will happen. And basically, these events are starting now. They've started already. You know what I'm saying? With Iran, attacking Israel, Hamas, basically conjuring up the support of Muslims in the Muslim world. Now, yes, Jordan, they got the support of the West, Egypt, you know what I mean, Saudi Arabia or whatever. But you got to understand, like, these countries are predominantly Muslim, and the people in the government, outside of the government, the citizens support Hamas. The citizens support what's going on. They don't, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's about Islam. It's not about nothing political. Hamas, they have made it clear in their charter that even the name is the Islamic Resistance Movement, bro. They will not stop until the Jews are out of the land, bro. And Iran is totally for that. And a lot of Muslims all over the world, even in England where y'all at, bro. Look what's going on over there. Y'all, they ain't even a Muslim country. Y'all ain't even a
No
Muslim
expansion.
country.
But what would that mean? Just following what we just said there. I mean, from Hamas the charter, and also Hezbollah the charter, and what they're saying. So, what will that mean?
So eventually, what's going to happen? It's going to be a Islamic revolution, I believe, to turn the nations that are more neutral to becoming more for Hamas and against Israel. And there will be a major attack on Israel, led by Iran, just like it says in Ezekiel 38, that Iran, along with other nations mentioned, are going to swarm on Israel like a cloud. And when they do, on the way, God himself is going to destroy the peoples with fire. It says, I'm just telling you what the scriptures say, with fire from the sky, with earthquakes, and he's going to turn their swords against each other. And it says that the cleanup from that mess is going to be like 7 years. It's going to take 7 years to clean it all up. Now, it says what the scripture says, once that happens, and God does this, he's saying he's doing this for the whole world. He says the whole world know that I am God, and I'm showing myself holy through my people, Israel. And one thing people got to understand is, the Israelites, the Jews, they into the Kabbalah and all kind of crazy stuff that's far from biblical or righteous. But they are still God's people, bro. They are still the people that God chose, and he still claims them. When God had destroyed them for worshiping idols and worshiping Baal and all that other kind of stuff and sacrificing babies and stuff we was reading in the Bible, and he destroyed them and sent them to other countries to be chastised, he still claimed them as his people. So you gotta understand, nothing has changed. That has not changed. These are still his people, bro. These are the people that he chose, that he brought out. Their only explanation of their existence is the Bible, bro. They have no other explanation of how they come into existence as a people. Their story is in the Bible, bro, from God. They have no other story. You see what I'm saying?
So
No.
can I ask a question?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, Hassan. Come on, man.
So if from the interpretation that you're presenting,
Mhm.
that God presents his loyalty and saves the Jewish people from their demise,
Enemies. Right.
does that mean he's not Christian?
No, not at all. So in the event when this happens, they're gonna get it. The Jews will get a revelation of Jesus Christ,
Oh, okay.
and they're gonna become a holy. So once this happens, Israel will become a holy nation, and this is what it emphasizes in this prophecy, that when this event happens, this is gonna turn the hearts of the Jews back to God, and they will get the revelation that that Jesus is the Messiah, and they're the ones who killed him 2,000 years ago, and it says they're gonna mourn for their abominations, and they'll mourn for the one whom they pierced, as a one mourns for the only begotten Son. This is a prophecy, and this is what's prophesied to happen once this event happens. Israel will turn; they will become a holy nation, government, everything. The Jews there'll be a
They'll
supernatural.
become Christian?
Yeah, basically they will become Christian, but you got to understand when that happens, though. That I believe this is, according to other prophecies that are mentioned in the last days, the Antichrist would have taken over the world. So once the Jews become a holy nation, the Antichrist at the same time or around the same time would have established his power, the new world order. And so there's a prophecy in the Bible about a 7-year peace treaty. These are the last 7 years before the Messiah returns. There's a 7-year peace treaty that the Antichrist will make with Israel. It's mentioned in the Old Testament and it's mentioned in Revelations. He's going to make a peace treaty with Israel for 7 years, and he's going to break it in 3.5 years. And when he breaks it in the 3.5 years, all hell is going to break loose, and he's going to turn all the nations in the world against Israel. Now, I believe the reason behind that peace treaty, right? Because it's why would the Antichrist make a peace treaty? He got the whole world. He's running the world. Why would he need to make a peace treaty with little old Israel? I believe that when this happened, when these nations come against Israel and they get destroyed and then Israel changes, I believe it'll be during a time that there'll be a world war at the same time. And that's what we're seeing happen right now. You see what I'm saying? So say Iran and this Islamic movement, they all they round up these people, they come into the nation, they fulfill the prophecy this way. At the same time, that could spark from a world war, just like World War II. You had Axis powers. You had Japan over there doing their own thing, but they was allied with Germany, who was doing their own thing over in Europe. So would it be the same way, like Russia and China doing their own thing against the U.S. and the UN? Actually, not just the U.S. They just say the UN, right? And so they'll be fighting against the UN. and Iran, their ally, will be focusing their concentration on Israel, right? And so I believe this will happen during that time. When God does this, it'll happen during a time like that. And it probably could be something that could end the war, because it'll be so incredible that the whole world will bear witness to. Because again, God said that the whole world will know that I am God, and that Israel, I'm showing myself holy through my people Israel. And so when that happens,
So should I cancel my summer holidays that I've got booked in Lebanon?
I mean, no, bro, because you never really. I mean, bro, like it's up to you, man.
Here's what I think. I don't think that this conflict will end. This conflict in the Middle East, I don't think it will end between Muslims and the Jews and
God
Israel.
is going to end. God is going to end it according to the
I don't
scriptures,
think
man.
it'll end, even if most Muslims don't necessarily abide by what their leadership is doing. I don't think it will end. I don't think it's because I don't think the root of it is completely political. And if it was, I think it would have ended by now. But I reckon this war will continue.
Yeah, it can't end, bro. You know why? Because you got to understand Hamas. Have you read their charter, the Hamas charter?
Yeah, the Avalon
Bro,
project,
they will fight until the Jews are out of the land. That will never happen. So it will never end, bro.
Hold on, bro. Shouts to JM. I see you, bro. Peace to the fam. Peace to you as well. Yeah, bro. We just out here chopping it up. We got 37 people view the channel right now. Salute to everyone watching it. And yeah, yes, brother. Peace to you, bro, man. Should join, man. I mean, get your views on this one, man. Get your views on this one. Yeah, I don't think it will end, bro. I'll be honest with you. I don't think it will end. I know Hassan views it differently. He mentioned Jordan. He mentioned Egypt. He mentioned the fact that these nations, including Saudi Arabia, these are the same nations that went to war with Israel in 1967, and now, I think Hassan looked at it like, oh, there's some kind of reform that has taken place, or something has happened that will not go down that path anymore because they're not going to war. They're not supporting Iran.
Yeah, you know what? Jordan and Egypt. Matter of fact, let me just say, Jordan and Egypt is not mentioned in the nations that are going to come together with Persia, with Iran to attack Israel in that time. So Egypt and Jordan, not even like those territories aren't mentioned. You see what I'm saying? The territories that are mentioned are Iran, Somalia, Sudan, Libya, the North African countries, and also Turkey. In Turkey, the land that's Turkey now, where the ancient name was Beth Tagomar and something else, but it's now it's modern day Turkey.
Yeah, but the reason why I mentioned it, guys, and we got 23 minutes, and then we'll have to end the live. But the reason why I mentioned it is just because there will always be groups of people that will align with the idea, like for example Hamas. Hamas believes they're fighting a holy war, and up to a certain extent, so does Netanyahu. I know you alluded to that, what do you call it? And then you've got Hezbollah, who also feels the same way. So even though most Muslims might not want this to continue, I think people that have a different way of looking at the ideology will want to continue, because this has been going on for way too long, and this isn't going to stop the fight.
Why is it going on though? Why won't it stop?
No, I know exactly. This is the big question, which basically involves going into the Bible and what the Bible basically says about why Israel is a holy land. It is a holy land. I mean, I don't think there's another land out here that's been fought over more than Israel. I really don't know. And it's been going on, this struggle since you can go all the way back to the Crusades. The struggle for that holy land has been, it's over 1,000 years. And I don't think it will stop. I really don't think it will stop. Well, it will go from there. I would have in a sense to do what Brother Elijah is doing, and kind of look into the prophecies. And I think, and Hassan, you have prophecies in the scriptures, but I like what Hassan also mentioned, which is I can't control that, and I can't necessarily interpret that because that's too huge. You know what I'm saying? I can only do what I can do, what I'm saying, which is focus on my own salvation type of thing instead of that, what that would mean, what I mean, in a bigger scale. You see what I'm saying? And yeah, we can be here all day looking at interpreting what the Bible says as far as prophecies goes. But yeah, I agree. I agree with both of you up to a certain extent. But I don't, Hassan. I'm sorry, but I don't think this will end. I know you have aspirations that it will end, but I don't
Mm.
think it will end.
No, it can't end, bro, because there's certain you gotta understand the people that are not gonna let it end, like Hamas, Hezbollah, these groups, you gotta understand they're not motivated from their own motivations, bro. They're motivated by their interpretations of the Quran and the Hadiths. You see what I'm saying? Now, they're very into what it says and they're very radical about what it says. You see what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, there are a lot of Muslims who aren't, and they would, disagree with what they're doing. But at the end of the day, you got to understand that they're only radical about what the Quran and the Hadith say. That's
Much,
it.
What
much,
do you reckon, Hassan?
much respect to Elijah for saying their interpretation. He didn't
Mm.
say the Quran and the Hadith because Hamas doesn't represent. We speak to most Muslims who are knowledgeable on the issue. They don't represent Islam or Muslims to a certain degree. They're heavily supported
But
by.
to Hamas, they don't represent, Islam or Muslims. You see what I'm saying?
Guys,
And it'd
Yeah,
be the
guys,
yeah,
vice
let me just,
versa.
sorry, Hassan, before you
yeah,
come in,
yeah.
let me just read, shout out to Sihaj, welcome to the channel. It says Psalms 83, in process to future fulfillment, then Israel borders are expanded, will have an unknown amount of peace. Then I think the 7-year period spoken by Daniel starts, but I cannot say confidently. Okay, that's good, that's good, that's good to have that doubt always at the back of your mind. Yeah, go ahead, Hassan, so respond to that, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think peace is a lot closer than I think people think. I think Hezbollah they're decapitated, and the Muslims you can literally see in Syria and other places, Muslims are happy that Hezbollah is no longer around. The influence of these, I guess, radical offshoots that don't necessarily that aren't associated with mainstream Islam in the region or mainstream Islam full stop. They're coming to an end. Hamas, a part of me thinks this is their last year, so I can't see how this will carry on considering the Muslim, or I say the Middle Eastern animosity towards what is Israel, which is essentially a U.S. military base, and I don't see it as a nation because they can't even survive on their own. Right? By any objective measure, they can't survive on their own. So I can't see it other than just being hegemony or just a U.S. or European military base, just like Iran is a Russian military base supporting Russia's interest in the region, or China's, which is essentially China's interest in the region now. So I can't. When I look at the Israel that may be referred to in the hadiths, where the Antichrist will come and so on and so on, and maybe the biblical interpretation of Israel, I don't see it being this Israel. I don't look at the prophetic, whether it be the Islamic scripture or the Christian scripture. I don't look at that and think, well, God will establish a nation. He'll reestablish the state of Israel, and he'll give them like plenty supply of F-16s and Tomahawk. No, this is just the U.S. military base. They cannot survive without U.S. support or European support. It's almost impossible. They're weak without the West, and which essentially makes them just as I said, a military base for the West. This isn't the Israel that I think that is referred to in any previous scripture, because they're just too transparent. There's nothing special about them, really. I think Hamas, this might be the last year for them to a certain degree. Hezbollah is definitely the last year for them because they've just had a majority of their leadership decapitated. I think things are going more towards peace. I think things are going towards more stability. I think Jordan, Saudi, as I said, even Syria now is on the sway because they've had they've had although they're still quite a puppet of Iran, but they've had a real kicking in the last decade or so. It's not the Syria that they used to be, so they're willing to compromise and make changes. Lebanon is, again, they'll do anything to survive now because being reoccupied by Israel is not an option for them. I think there will be some really interesting changes in the next year or so, because this started on October 7th to a certain degree. It was a bit, back and forth. Things were moving forward, and now things have really escalated since October 7th. But it's bad for those on the opposing side. It's bad for Hamas. And Hamas can have whatever charter they want. Doesn't mean that the Muslim world supports them, because they don't. You've got Egypt blocking them off. You've got Jordan literally rejecting refugees from Gaza because of Hamas. The king of Jordan stating that we will not take any Palestinian refugees. Zero. No nation's taking Palestinian.
Bro, yeah, I think you kind of ignoring the fact that, bro, Muslims worldwide, bro, Palestinian flags all over the social media, bro. Come on, man.
Okay,
They're not getting Muslim support.
Can you show me the protest in Egypt?
Bro, okay, Egypt is a okay. Look, I would go as far to say that Egypt is a. I would go as far to say Egypt is a Coptic Christian country, bro.
No, it's like 95% Muslim, Sunni Muslim as well.
But the Muslim, but they casual, bro. How many hardcore Egyptian Muslims you really know, bro? Most Muslims I know are secular, bro, and from Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, like that's how it is, bro. Like they not really.
You look at the Palestinians.
You can't look at them as like as Islam, like in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't really look at Egypt.
Okay, so let me finish my point.
Because for one, they got Christians. They got a good proportion of Christians. Like there's no Christians in Iran, right? There's no like all these other Muslim countries.
There are Christians.
Yeah, but not with the same freedoms. Not with the same freedoms they got in Egypt.
Hassan, go ahead. Answer, Elijah.
Okay, so this is the point I wanted to make, and I would have made it on a previous live as well. If you look around at protests for Palestine, most of them aren't in the Muslim world. They're not in Somalia, they're not in Egypt, they're not in Sudan, they're not in Saudi Arabia, they're not in UAE, they're not in Qatar, they're not in Jordan, they're not in Lebanon. Most of the Muslims empathize with the Palestinian people, what they're going through, but they don't genuinely care about a Palestinian state. They don't, because they've seen Hamas and what they've done and how they've been treacherous and goaded Israel into certain situations. Most of those protests you're seeing are in London, Washington, California, Paris, New York. These are Muslims living in the West, essentially present, because you should empathize, and everybody should empathize with the people of Gaza, because what's going on is horrible, and I hope people do, right? But the flag, the nationhood, the idea of we want the particular land, we want from the river to the sea type thing, that is a Western, propped up by Western liberals, right? And Muslims who confide in Western liberalism to a certain degree. These are Muslims who boycott, protest, beat up sheikhs or imams in Shepherd's Bush. I think you know who I'm referring to. Beat up imams in Shepherd's Bush when they say, hey, Hamas are the bad guys. Hamas are the ones that are causing what Israel's also the bad guy, because they really are quite corrupt, the Israeli government. But the Hamas is causing issues. They're escalating situations. We don't care about their charter. They're Hamas are the ones killing their own opposition in their country. So when you see those flags, they're not of people who are knowledgeable, who are not wise, and who are not a part of the Muslim. You speak to Egyptians, they'll tell you.
Hold on, let Elijah respond.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead. Elijah, go ahead. Elijah.
You see that?
Elijah. This is Elijah. Oh, by the way, guys, the link, guys, if any one of you guys want to jump in, you know what I mean, just express your opinion, you know what I'm saying, you're more than welcome to. Elijah,
can y'all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just wanted you to respond to what Hassan was saying.
Yeah, so I just think there's a little bit of ignorance. I don't know, intentionally or maybe unintentionally, you just don't know. But bro, at the end of the day, if you go on YouTube, you type in Egypt support for Palestine, you will see protesters, you will see crowds. You type in any nation that you're saying that don't really support, you know what I'm saying, Hamas or whatever, or what's going on. You just look it up. It's and okay, so the governments don't, right? The governments obviously they're part of the whole brotherhood, so they're not gonna, you know what I'm saying? They're tied in, but they're not gonna be like totally supporting Palestine, right? But the people that are Muslim in these nations, bro, are protesting everywhere, not just in those nations, but even in the Muslim diaspora, like you mentioned. So it's not just the Muslim diaspora in the West, the Muslims in the West that's protesting, bro. Like, just look it up for yourself, man. It's all over, and just the social media alone, bro. You see people posting from all over the world with Palestinian flags, totally supporting, man. I mean, you can just see it in your own country. And all the Muslims there ain't from the same country. They're from all types of different Muslim countries. You see what I'm saying? Including some of the ones you just mentioned, and they support Palestine. Just look more into it, man. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, this in Egypt, right, Cairo?
Yeah, this is in Egypt. Support for Palestine. Is this what you're talking about, Elijah?
Yeah, yeah, like you know what I mean. But that's just one example. Like every country you mentioned, bro. It's a Muslim thing. It's not about this nation and that nation picking and choosing which nation support Hamas. It's an Islamic movement, bro. Now, obviously, different Muslims have their views. I understand that, but at the end of the day, the root behind the people that do support is all about Islam. You see what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day,
What'd you make of that, Hassan? What'd you make of that?
I would still argue that the majority of it is in the West. It's in, as I said, the US and Europe. You can have protests there in Cairo, right? But it would be a minimal amount for maybe a day or two. It wouldn't be consistent like it would be in the West every Saturday or every Sunday, numbering into the millions. Of course,
yeah,
yes,
because we free countries, bro. We're democracies where people can express themselves. You see what I'm saying? Those countries aren't.
Sure, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and that goes into the issue at hand. Freedom of expression is one way of freedom of expression attached with propaganda is a way of influencing people and managing their focus on an issue. When freedom of expression isn't necessarily a good thing, but that's a whole nother view that I have on another topic. Is there support for the Muslims in Gaza? Yes, but it's a humanitarian support. It's not necessarily a political or ideological.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're right about that. That is as well another reason to support, not just because of the Islamic, situation, but the humanitarian situation. And I believe this all the way that it's being presented as well, man. We get the news a certain, filtered a certain type of way, which the news is always meant to spark feelings, man. They always trying to reach your emotion. So
yes, and it's in this situation it's quite easy because you see repeatedly with kids with their heads blown off, people being told to go to the south, and they bomb the north, and then they bomb the south, and so on. So what Israel's doing in this situation is easy to see that they're taking things. They're being a bit they're being very inconsiderate in terms of how they target their and there's a lot of civilian deaths that the war could have been done in a very different way. But having said that, you have not necessarily more liberal societies like Jordan, more liberal societies like Lebanon to a certain degree, who are still have some reservations over the idea of the Palestinian land, because that is something, or the Palestinian nation, that is something that is heavily perpetuated in the West amongst obviously liberals and Muslims who may be inclined towards that propaganda. But the idea that there is still a commitment of ousting Israel, of course, I admit, you can literally see on YouTube an Israeli broadcaster in Qatar or whatever points a camera at someone. Hi, I'm from Israel, I'd like to interview, and then people just walk off and just ignore them and they get the cold shoulder. Of course, to be an Israeli is not in the Middle East, you're not popular. then you're not welcomed in most cases. I give you that, absolutely.
It's gonna be like
But
that to the end, bro.
sorry,
That won't change until the Messiah return. According to the Bible, Israel will always be not only are they enemies of Muslims, but they will eventually become enemies of the New World Order, of the whole world. There will be enemies of the world from this point
And
forward, bro.
I
They're
need to
gonna get
we
the
need to
flag.
we need to do a show on the end times and the New World Order and how this whole thing ties into, because I think that would be extremely interesting. But Hassan, I know you was finishing your point, and after that, because we have to finish at 2 hour mark. But
sure.
we'll give our last thoughts after that. Yeah, go ahead. Hassan. I know you
Yeah,
finished. Your
but you can also see other social media posts. This is maybe 2022, 2021, of people in the Arab world being very pro-Israel, whether it be we welcome Israel. You can see that now, in fact, in Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, more less so in places like Egypt, and definitely not necessarily in North Africa. Maybe obviously not Lebanon. Jordan's been quite pro-Israel. The tide was shifting, definitely was shifting before this conflict. Obviously, this conflict has pushed things back far more in terms of the process. But you were seeing Arab nations being very welcoming to the Arab people in general. Literally, social media posts of women painting their fingernails with the Israeli flag, people saying we welcome Israel, and so on. So the idea that things won't change, I've seen the change. I've genuinely seen it amongst the people and the government. The government is committed to change and is encouraging it. And the people were, from what I could see in 2022, before this conflict started, were committed to entertaining the idea of Israel. It's only people in the West that were Muslims in the West were very staunch anti-Israel, because it's become like a propaganda thing. For some reason, the idea Israel, how can I say, Hamas isn't, in the Muslim world, Hamas is well known to be, especially people who speak Arabic. You'll see posts very clearly of how they criticize Hamas. Hamas is seen as a terrorist organization by most average people.
Dude, they are,
So
man. 100%. Just read the charter.
yeah, but this is the thing. It's the people in the Muslim world coming to that conclusion, which also doubles down on the idea that change can happen, and it
Not
was
all
definitely so.
Muslims.
But a small amount moving forward is better than is. Well, not say better, but what I say is it went from the 1960s all-out war to now in the 21st century, people's welcoming the idea of Israelis coming to their country, and seeing Hamas, which are considered freedom fighters by some in the West, as being terrorists. So if things can change that much, which is almost 180, right? The idea that Israel will never be welcomed and there will never be peace and it's set for life, I don't agree. I'm not saying the biblical interpretation is wrong. My frustration with interpretations of eschatology is people associated with what they can see. Well, just because you can
Bro,
see certain
it's
parts
okay if you
happen
believe.
now.
It's okay if you believe it's wrong. It's just fine if you believe it's wrong. You're welcome to your opinion. You know.
Having said, the reason I word it that way is because I know Muslims who say, I know some Muslims interpret the things that way as well. They say, "Oh, the Antichrist is coming. Oh, then this is and this and blah blah blah." Well, I think to myself, well, you're an ant looking at a mountain.
Hey, let me say something real quick, man. Please, let me just say something real quick. So, okay, the Muslims that don't support Hamas, right? In your eyes, in your opinion, they're the hope that things are going to change. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm gonna tell you my truth. What I believe the Muslims that don't agree with Hamas and that are more about peace and don't agree with that form of Islam. When you put the two together, the people that support Hamas are movers. They are gonna move and they are gonna do what they want to do about their business. The Muslims who don't agree with Hamas and don't agree with all of that, they're weak, bro. They're soft. They're not fighters. They're not willing to jihad, bro. But the ones who are for Hamas, they are about jihad. They're willing to move. They're willing to fight. They're willing to rebel. And so, at the end of the day, if the Muslims who don't support Hamas are going to make any change, they have to be willing to do something about it, bro. And they're not doing anything about it, but just talking. You know what I'm saying? And blending in with the West.
How do you mean? Again, the Muslims I'm talking about aren't in the West. They're in the Middle East, in the Muslim world.
Yeah, but they're Westernized.
Not necessarily.
Okay, well, not necessarily,
I believe that most look, no one can deny that America is one of the countries is the country that has most influence around the world. So and it pushes secularism all over the world. So to me, it is a fact that eventually people will become more and more secular, just because of the influence and power and reach that America has. And people in poor countries are completely broke, have nothing. But guess what? They do have in their hands. They have a phone. You know what I mean? And these devices, these phone devices, are the biggest. Like when it comes to transporting culture around the world, and secular culture is the most popular culture that's being transported all over the world. So yeah, people are being secularized regardless, and not every single Muslim country or Muslim government structure is fully Islamic. A lot of them are partly secular, because they had to be, because of America again. America and the West. Yeah, go ahead, Hassan. Sorry.
Can I give it? So the reason Elijah's perception is, I would say, is incorrect is because the idea of having peace with Israel and not supporting Hamas's revolutionary, or what's the word, armed resistance against Israel isn't supported. It's not because of secularism. It's because peace is inclined towards the Islamic interpretation or the Islamic scripture. The idea that you can harm civilians is not Islamic. The idea that you can just start war for the sake of it is not Islamic. The idea that you can't take a diplomatic path with somebody who's perceived as an occupier is not un-Islamic. What Hamas has done, and you can speak to a lot of Islamic, I can give you clips of Islamic clerics pointing out that Hamas is wrong. And
send it to me, bro, because I slightly disagree with that. But send it to me, please.
I would know better than I think anybody else on the panel. And I'll definitely send it to you.
Please.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. But I would know better than any. I would say, as a Muslim, I would know better than anybody else on the panel. And I wouldn't assume to know Christianity better than you guys. But the idea that Hamas has, in their actions of killing innocent civilians and doing this and doing that, is supported by Muslims and people of knowledge, absolutely not true. Absolutely. You can literally see in Speaker's Corner people like Shamsi talking out about how Hamas, I don't think he refers to them as Khawarij, but certainly what they do is un-Islamic and they should not be supported. And he's pointed out, many Islamic speakers have supported that repeatedly. So the idea of having peace is only something adopted by the fat and the wealthy and the westernized who are eating their Haagen-Dazs and drinking their Starbucks or whatever and become no. The traditional Muslims who understand the Quran and Sunnah, and who take their knowledge from people of knowledge rather than what they see on far leftist propaganda machines in the West. No, this is not true. Traditional Muslims do not support Hamas. Traditional Muslims are going down the path of peace. It's Arab nationalists, Western liberal Muslims, really westernized Muslims, because the West is pretty pro. The average person in the West is pretty pro-Palestine. It's the governments that are pro-Israel, in fact, in the West, if we're going to say anything. They're the ones that go down this path of empathizing with Hamas and they're freedom fighters and blah, 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 and whatever crap that, whatever false interpretation of Hamas is presented. So it's your average Muslim. So, which for me, it doubles down on the fact that this will be the path towards peace is far more clear than it ever was.
Let me just read out what Information Age Ministry, that's the other channel from Elijah. It says Quran 9:29. Those who believe and have left their homes and strive with their wealth and their lives in Allah's way are of much greater worth in Allah's sight. These are these are they who are triumphant. And then he says the Arabic word interpreted as striving in this verse is the same root as jihad. The
Yes.
context is obviously holy war. Obviously, I would love to. Listen, guys, I would have loved to get into this debate here. You know what I'm saying? But obviously, Hassan would have to be comfortable with the debate. And Hassan hates debates, he prefers discussions. But we're going to have to end it here. We've just gone past the 2 hour mark, 2 hours and 4 minutes. And Elijah, man, why did you come in so late, man? My thing.
Man, I had something I had to do. I wanted to come on time and I planned on it, man. But
Oh wow.
yeah,
You need to come on time next time, man.
yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
for
guys,
sure.
listen. Let me get everyone's final thoughts, guys. Elijah, go ahead. Go ahead. Let me hear your final
Okay.
thoughts and then signing
All
out.
right, so yeah, my final thoughts are a lot of what's going on is it's shrouded in a lot of mystery, and I believe the mystery behind it has to do with just this is a biblical situation. This is like it's a very prophetic situation. There are a lot of things that go on in the world that just happen. They're not necessarily prophesied or predicted or you know, but this what's going on in Israel is it has to do with God, bro, hands down. What's going on between Muslims and Jews and the whole Israel land situation is very biblical. One thing I do want to mention for people to keep this in mind in regards to Palestine being a nation and being a nation taken from the Jews. Um, Historically, the Palestinian people they weren't really like a government or a group like a people like that. They were under the Turkish Ottoman Empire for a very long time until World War One, when France and England decided to take the land and destroy the Turkish Ottoman Empire. And so once they did that, that's when Palestine became occupied territory. Now, under the Turkish Ottoman Empire, the Palestinians, there were also Jews in the land, but there were very few people in the land because it would literally was a wasteland. It was like imagine going to the country. It was like a big countryside. There was nothing there. And so so there weren't any Palestinians hollering, "We need our own nation" under the Turkish Ottoman Empire, and they weren't hollering, "We need our own nation" during most of the British occupation. It wasn't until the Jews came in and began to outnumber the Palestinians who had been in the land, and obviously because there wasn't that many people in the land, period. But the Jews began to outnumber the Palestinians in the land, and obviously because of the religious, friction, they're like, "Wait a minute, this is our land," and so that's basically what happened. So they didn't take a land from Palestinians that had been established. It was under the Turkish Ottoman Empire, no complaints. Under the British occupation, no complaints. It was up to a certain point where they were like, "Okay, this is our nation. We were here first." Okay, and so yeah, I just want people to like look into the history of how Israel became a nation. And look into the history of Palestine as a nation, okay, before this whole Israeli situation. And yeah, man, but anyway, I'm done, man,
Hassan, what's your final thoughts, man? Hassan, what's your final thoughts?
Oh yeah, so yeah, just two final thoughts. One, the Muslims and the Jews have had a generally good history, whether it be the Muslims saving the Jews from European persecution in the 1600s. If it wasn't for the Muslims, in fact, there would be no Jews left in the world. That's one. You have the Umar Caliphate, the caliphate under Umar. He was the one after he took over Jerusalem, or that part of the world, I guess Israel or whatever you want to call it, from the Byzantine Empire. He's the one that allowed the Jews to re-enter Israel, because under the Byzantines, the Jews weren't allowed to settle in Jerusalem. So the Muslims have had a generally positive history before this recent establishment of the State of Israel, or AKA U.S. European military base, as I see it. The Jews and the Muslims have always had good relations.
Not always, but they have had good relations. I agree, but not always. Trust me, bro. It's
Hold
been
not
on,
very
hold
up and
always.
on,
down.
hold on. That's my son's final thoughts. Go ahead, go ahead.
No. He's being fair. He's being fair. Not always, but there has been good times, and we have had, the Muslims have been in a position of complete control over the Jews, like the Europeans are now, because that really is they are, in a sense, under Roman rule. If the Europeans, are essentially Europeans and North Americans are essentially the Romans to a certain degree, or the descendants of the Romans. Under Muslim rule, they did survive, they did thrive, and they did survive a new millennium because of us. That's my first point. Second point, I think there is a road to peace. I think when people like Hezbollah, not people, organizations like Hezbollah are taken off, because they really are just troublemakers, they're not peacemakers, taken out of the equation. And ideally, when Hamas just gives up, and hopefully a more reasonable government is established in Gaza that benefits its people rather than just betrays them like it did on October 7th, is established, I think things will escalate very quickly towards peace, especially considering the Arab nations just wanting to see the end of the conflict. Because whether it be this land, this flag, that flag, it's not the end of the world. Peace is the moment. No more innocent deaths is the real objective. And I think Iran hopefully will just stop, but who knows? That's my final thoughts.
Okay, my final thoughts is Iran launching missile on Israel. Iran might not look at the situation as, Iran might not want a full all-out war, but Israel is definitely looking for one, because I don't think Israel wants a repeat of this. I personally think that uh, it- um, what Israel wants out of all of this is to put an end to all of this. They don't want the 1967-68 situations occurring again. They don't want this back and forth with the Muslims that they've been having
Oh,
since
they do.
hold on, since dare I say since the very beginning of when Islam commenced, since when Islam started off, because we've been having this issue with Jews and Christians. I would say have been having this issue back and forth with Muslims since 639. Since the first caliph. This is what I would say. This is what I'm saying. This is not just political. This is spiritual in nature. It has been going on for a very, very, very long time, and this is why I think this conflict will never ever end, because it's beyond political, is ideological, is spiritual, and it's been going on for too long. You just have to look at the history of it. So, for those that think that there is a political resolution to this, they haven't looked at the history of it. They haven't looked at what has gone on. For example, I'll give you an example: the Pact of Umar. And the Pact of Umar is basically how Christians and Jews were treated under Islamic rule. Having to pay the jizya, basically second-class citizens. You can't build churches. You can't, if a Muslim is walking, you have to walk the other way, and so on and so forth. And this has all started with Muslims taking over Christian lands, and so on and so forth. I'm not gonna blame the Muslims for the dispersions of the Jews, because that was to do with the Romans. But yeah, so this has been going on for a very long time. It's not going to end. And anyone who doesn't know that doesn't know enough of the history. And I myself, I mean, go back to the Crusades again. It's Islamic, Christian, and Muslim conflict. It's been going on for way, 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 way too long. It's just that today we don't want to admit we don't want to admit to it. But this is why I think this will never end. Not until the end comes, the end of time comes. But yeah, I don't think Muslims are going to give up that land. That Israel is the most fought land that we've ever seen, and the Muslims are not going to give up trying to obtain that land. Neither will the Jews. Okay, the only ones who, in a sense, have said, you know, fine, in the interest of peace, we're going to kind of like retreat. It's the Christians. You know, we did our best trying to get those lands back from Islamic rule a long time ago in the Crusades, but unfortunately, the West is now secular and abides by secularism rather than Christianity. So,
Well, you
so
know
yeah,
what? I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
so but in terms of the powers that be, sorry, the Freemasons and the Western powers aligning themselves with the Jews, there's a lot to unpack there. But I do believe that the Freemasons and so on, um when I look at that relationship, there's so much to say in terms of that relationship, but I would have to first establish certain things in order to say for sure that that's what's really happening. Because I look at Israel as mostly as a secular nation, and I think they made a deal with the powers that be, with the Freemasons. You know, because everything that they push in Israel is secularism, which is anti-Christian. So I don't know. I would have to that's a topic for Rumble. That's not a topic for because I'm trying to I'm trying to stay YouTube clean. That's the reason why I don't want to go too much into it because then people are going to start making up of assumptions. But yeah. So these are my final thoughts, guys. These are my final thoughts.
Also, one question: Will you ever
Mhm.
do a video on YouTube about the persecution of Christians in Israel?
The persecution of yes, because Christians, guys, listen, Christians are being persecuted in Israel. Not they're being persecuted in Islamic countries, but they're also being persecuted in Israel. We get spat on, we get attacked. You know, our holy sites get mocked, get ridiculed, and all of that
Hey,
type
but
of stuff.
why wouldn't
So
they? Jesus himself was persecuted in Israel.
exactly. So it's true. It's true. Everything that the Reverend Hazard just said is true. It's happening. And the footage are ridiculous, bro. I'm sure you've seen it, Elijah. I know you've seen it, bro. I know you've seen it. So
I'm not saying
yeah.
they are. I'm just wondering if you.
What's not being reported though is the growing number of Jews that's becoming Christians in Israel, though.
Oh yeah, the Messianic Jews.
Messianic
Messianic.
Jews,
Yeah, I've heard about that as well. No, Hassan, we're definitely going to do it, and I want you to be a part of it. We're definitely going to do it, and I want you to be a part of it. But it's just like I just want to tread carefully because you know I don't know why people can't just freely talk about. It's not anti-Semitic to say that Christians are being persecuted by Jews because they are in Israel. I'm sorry, they are. They are. The you know the facts are there, the reports are there. So it shouldn't be a. Why is YouTube against that? I don't. But you know, we can't have this conversation freely online. Anyways, guys. Anyways, shouts to everyone watching CE Hutch. If Information Age Ministry, that's my brother over here. Please go and follow him. Shouts to Prince of Power. Shouts to everyone watching. We had 37 of you guys watching. Shouts to all you guys, and welcome to the channel. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. It doesn't matter what you believe in, what ideology you're part of. You're more than welcome on the platform, whether you're Muslim, Christian, Jew, whatever, atheist, you name it. Okay? All right, guys, take care. Peace. Salute to Elijah. Salute to everyone. Peace.
God bless y'all, man.
God bless you, bro.